This message comes from Amazon One Medical. Ever gotten sick on vacation? Amazon One Medical has 24/7 virtual care, so you can get help no matter where you are. It's kind of like the room service of medical care. Thanks to Amazon, healthcare just got less painful.
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. When we first started thinking about a food and dining series, I knew I wanted to do something on regional summer foods. Being from Michigan, this is the time of year where I'm craving a bowl of fresh cherries or some fried pickerel. And when we started looking for guests, we anticipated foods like baby back ribs, tomato sandwiches, and, of course, hot dogs.
So we are so Chicago hot dog crazy.
That is Chicago Tribune restaurant critic Louisa Chu. Chicago is one of my favorite food cities, and I knew that the all-beef hot dog was their thing.
We actually have two iconic Chicago-style hot dogs. Yeah. So there's the one, which is the Depression dog. The name kind of gives it up a little bit. And that is usually like a super skinny natural casing hot dog. And then like the bare bones kind of topping. But the thing that makes it a meal almost everywhere that you'll get that kind of a hot dog are like a huge mess of fresh cut fries. And then there's the other, which is kind of the more colorful Vienna beef style hot dog, which has like the poppy seed bun, white onion, red tomato, neon green relish, pickle spear, sport peppers, and celery salt.
But then she told me about another year-round Chicago staple that rocked my world.
So one of my favorite regional Chicago foods is the Chicago-style peanut butter egg roll.
Yes, you heard that right. Peanut butter egg rolls. Louisa grew up making these in her family's chop suey restaurant, but you can imagine that would probably throw a lot of people for a loop. And like a lot of hyphenated American cuisine, it has some baggage around it.
Many of my Chinese American, especially food writers, journalists who say that, Chinese American food is not real Chinese food, it's fake food. And I'm like, no, it's real. Like I ate it. I mean, it's real and it's good and it's delicious.
But there have always been conversations about what food can be considered authentic. And conversations that assess realness extend beyond Chinese American food, too.
You often hear the word elevated Southern food when people are trying to describe Southern food in a restaurant.
That is food writer, cookbook author, and Athens, Georgia native Nicole Taylor.
Or when Black chefs or chefs who don't fit the very stereotypical ways people see Southerners are making food, they would use elevated. And it's just Southern food.
Southern food has a long history, but it wasn't always included in the tapestry of what is classified as real or authentic American foods. But Nicole's food of choice holds the complexity of the South and the people that make it in one simple dish.
I think a lot of people hear the dish fried green tomatoes and they think about a movie, but I really think about the slightly soft, firm outside, unripe red tomato that is green and how you soak it in a tangy buttermilk that's seasoned and you season the batter.
Fried green tomatoes, the crispy, tangy, sweet snack that showcases what Nicole calls the bounty of a Georgia summer.
I think that chefs and home cooks, I'll even go back to the Black Hand in the American South, realize like, oh, wait, this not so ripe fruit, because it is a fruit, we can do something else with this before it turns red and get really soft. We can pickle them because you see green tomatoes pickled. I've seen them on salads. I've seen them on sandwiches. Oh, we can fry them.
After talking to Louisa and Nicole, I wanted to know more about the histories that led to peanut butter egg rolls and fried green tomatoes, and why those histories matter. This is Food for Thought. And for the past few weeks, we've been looking at the way food and dining shape our communities and culture. In this final episode, Chicago Tribune restaurant critic Louisa Chu and food writer Nicole Taylor join me to uncover the history baked into the foods we've come to love. Up first, my chat with Louisa and her hunt for the peanut butter egg roll. Talk to me about if you even remember the first time that you ate a peanut butter egg roll, and talk to me about the experience of growing up around them.
I don't have any memories that don't involve Chicago-style peanut butter egg rolls. I definitely have distinct memories of making them with my aunt who owned the restaurant, with my uncle. And then the best part, when you change the oil out of the fryer, you have fresh egg rolls that day, and they bubble up, they bubble and they blister, and they're so hot and crispy. But like with any kind of good fried dough, there's a little bit of a chew to the wrapper as well. And then the cabbage is still like super tender, but like a tiny, tiny bit of crisp. And then the fried chicken, of course, that renders out. And so you get that like lovely like stickiness. And then like that hint, that aroma of peanut butter.
For Louisa, peanut butter egg rolls were as normal to her as any other food growing up. And it's a relatively simple dish. Cabbage, fried chicken skin, a little bit of shrimp, and just a tad of peanut butter. When some people hear that, they think, well, maybe the peanut butter is used to seal the egg roll.
I'll dispel that rumor quickly. You do not use peanut butter to seal an egg roll. To do that is like... It's crazy. You don't do that. The peanut butter is likely just a flavor enhancer. It's so subtle. It's so light that, its presence isn't necessarily, pronounced by any means, but its absence is absolutely felt to the core. Can I tell you, when I've had egg rolls without peanut butter, it feels barren.
Now, for me, when I think of punching up the taste of an egg roll, I'm ready to dip it in some condiments, but not Louisa.
I was never a sweet and sour or hot mustard kind of a person. To me, all of that was the egg roll was enough of a complete world and experience for me.
For this dish to be such an integral part of Louisa's family restaurant and presumably a Chicago takeout delicacy, I had to wonder, who were these made for?
Oh, I should absolutely underscore that we did not eat them as a family. I mean, the people making them typically did not eat those peanut butter egg rolls because they were a Chinese-American invention. And so they were made for our customers. And so this is, again, the kind of identity crisis in an egg roll, like a lot of foods, especially with Chinese-American restaurants, which were really geared for a non-Chinese clientele.
Usually a predominantly white clientele. And according to Louisa, that demographic has changed over time to a predominantly Black clientele, usually in Chicago's South Side and West Side neighborhoods. But peanut butter egg roll status as a Chinese-American invention would bring up some unanticipated questions for Louisa when she left Chicago.
When I moved out to LA, in my 20s, there was lots of Chinese restaurants, of course, but their egg rolls were not anything like the Chicago-style peanut butter egg rolls. They were like stuffed with meat, and I was like, "What is this?" And then when I'd ask about if there's peanut butter, they'd look at me like, "What are you talking about, girl?" So
that made Louisa think. Well, if it's a Chicago thing, where did it come from? And why did it settle in Chicago, or at the very least, the Midwest of all places?
Egg roll for me is kind of like a good barometer just about any restaurant. It gives you an idea of what the rest of the food's going to be on the menu and what kind of care they're going to have. And then also, when I talk about Chinese American food and people would tell me their stories and like the food that they crave, and then one after another, those restaurants start closing, then I really wanted to try to figure out like some of the history.
And she got her opportunity thanks to a question from a reader.
We had a series where we asked our audience what they wanted to know. And that was one of the questions. And I was like, oh yeah, this is a really important question. And so I jumped on that.
The question? We loved the peanut butter flavored egg rolls at Pekin House. Is there any place in the city or nearby burbs where we can find similar ones? That set Louisa off on the scavenger hunt of a lifetime.
I started off first with our question asker, talked to her a little bit about some of her most memorable egg rolls. And then I tried to trace those back. And so, for example, there was another restaurant that was kind of famous called Pekin House in the Chicago area, and was able to trace then a descendant who was out in DeKalb, just outside of the Chicago area, and went out there and talked to the owner, one of the descendants of that family, and tried those. And then also then went to the oldest Chinese restaurant that's still open in Chicago's Chinatown.
There were a lot of questions, answers, leads, dead ends, and, of course, egg rolls.
And just about that time, one of the restaurants in the Chicago area called Cow, which did a variation that was the Chicago-style peanut butter egg roll, but it was batter dipped and deep fried. So it was like another, as those kinds of restaurants evolve, like a lot of immigrant-owned businesses of that era, then those traditions die out, and the people who knew those stories and the reasons behind them, they start to fade, but people still want those things.
After searching all around Chicago, Louisa finally came up on a lead.
I was finally able to chase it down to like one 90-something-year-old chef and restaurant owner, Chinese man who was about to jump on a plane back to China and disappear for months.
In Springfield, Missouri.
I have like this tracking list of all of the restaurants and, who's still alive, who's running them. And he was like the oldest one. I realized that this particular chef and restaurant owner might be my last living connection, whose restaurant's in Springfield, Missouri. And he does actually have a peanut butter egg roll on the menu. And I thought maybe he's the one. And so I was able to just track him down through the restaurant, through his sons, and then also finally to him, because one of his sons works at the restaurant with him, and the other son was taking him on this trip. I was able to finally track him down and to ask him, did you invent the Chicago-style peanut butter egg roll? It was like long pause, and he was like, no, I did not. But he first learned to make it, he told me, after World War II in the Philadelphia area when he was working at a Chinese-American restaurant there.
Even though Louisa didn't get the answer she was hoping for, the journey gave her something she hadn't anticipated. Closure.
That to me was a wonderful moment, even though he didn't have the answer that I was hoping for, to be able to speak with him for that moment before he passed, which he did a few years ago. Yeah, that to me was a bit of a closure, because as an immigrant who, has not been able to have direct contact with a lot of my direct family, to have that moment with him, was significant, was meaniful.
And with that closure came a newfound appreciation for the food she grew up with.
Many of my Chinese American, especially food writers, journalists who say that, Chinese American food is not real, Chinese food is fake food. And I'm like, no, it's real. Like I ate it. I mean, it's real and it's good and it's delicious and it was thoughtful and it was innovative and it was resourceful. I mean, all of those things, there needs to be no shame. And that when it's executed beautifully, there's something remarkable about a certain item that is able to carry on for decades and decades, through generations and generations, and that now is, kind of misunderstood, ridiculed, and, and that once we sort of understand like how important that is. So highlighting that one simple item, the Chicago style peanut butter egg roll, kind of really, I think, gave a lot of people the freedom to say like, oh, wait, I like this too. I know I'm not supposed to, but I like it. And I say, there's no not supposed to. You like it. Me too.
Louisa, I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brittany. I so much enjoyed it too.
Coming up,
the possibilities of how to make a fried green tomato. If that ain't the American South right now, what is? It's both beautiful, it's tasty, but it's still complicated.
Nicole Taylor on fried green tomatoes and the complicated beauty of the American South.
This message comes from Amazon. Have you ever gotten sick on a very expensive, very non-refundable family trip? Amazon One Medical has 24/7 virtual care, so you can get help no matter where you are. And with Amazon Pharmacy, your meds can get delivered right to your hotel fast. It's kind of like the room service of medical care. Thanks to Amazon, healthcare just got less painful.
This message comes from Charles Schwab. When it comes to managing your wealth, Schwab gives you more choices, like full-service wealth management and advice when you need it. You can also invest on your own and trade on Thinkorswim. Visit schwab.com to learn more. This message comes from First Leaf. First Leaf takes care of the wine for your summer. First Leaf's short quiz figures out what you like, then delivers a summer-ready box. Bright whites, smooth reds, and chillable bubbles. Go to firstleaf.com/summertime with promo SUMMERTIME.
This message comes from KeyBank. Growing a successful business has never been easy. But whether you're navigating a complex industry or trying to reinvent one, KeyBank's breadth of banking experts are here to collaborate on market-proven solutions. At KeyBank, they're built to grow with your changing needs because they're not just there for the business you are now. They're there for the business you'll become. Reimagine business as usual. KeyBank opens doors. Learn more at key.com/B2B.
I look forward to coming down south, coming to Athens, Georgia in the summertime. And I think it's for like one reason, and that is the serendipity of me finding fruit in the city and little towns like Comer, where I'm just getting in my car, looking for that hand-painted, not perfect sign that says peaches or fresh fruit. I love that the most.
Peaches are probably what come to mind most when people think of Georgia. Sweet, succulent, and easy to come by. But Nicole feels like people disregard just how important fresh produce is to Southern cooking.
I think there's this misconception that if you're in the South in the summer that you're having fried chicken and collard greens. Like people assume that you're having the very classic Southern or deep South food. That's such a complete misconception. I think all people in American South who understand the bounty of the summer and understand like, oh, the tomatoes are not red yet. What can we do with them?
And when it comes to fried green tomatoes, Nicole has her recipe down pat.
I think the best thing about fried green tomatoes is before you even put them in the buttermilk, I salt them a bit. I put salt, pepper, paprika, any other spices. I then put them in the buttermilk. I like to put a little bit of hot sauce in the buttermilk. And then I make my coating. I'm sure there are chefs or other home cooks that use Japanese panko or breadcrumbs. I like to use cornmeal with a little all-purpose flour. I think it's so traditional. It's so classic.
Did you always know that fried green tomatoes were a Southern food, or was that something you found out when you got older?
There was a restaurant that's still around in Atlanta, and they had it on their menu. Obviously, people, tourists, locals, and they had fried green tomatoes on the menu. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is a Southern dish. Often hate the word when people say elevated Southern food, but
Why do you hate when people say like elevated Southern food?
you often hear the word elevated Southern food when people are trying to describe Southern food in a restaurant, or when Black chefs or chefs who don't fit the very stereotypical ways people see Southerners are making food, they would use elevated. And it's just Southern food. I think people just use that one word elevated to say a bunch of things. It sometimes denote that, oh, this person may not have origins in the American South. This person is a trained chef. They're not self-taught. This person is using French techniques to make fried green tomatoes. So instead of just like saying this food comes from an Indian American person who's lived in the American South forever, or this chef comes from a Black woman chef who's from New York City but has a restaurant in Savannah. They just say elevated instead of just saying what the person is or telling the story of the person's relationship to the American South.
So it's like a shortcut. It's not giving you the whole context.
It is a shortcut. It's a lazy shortcut, in my opinion.
And funnily enough, even though Nicole couldn't remember the first time she had fried green tomatoes, she can remember what brought her back to the dish: homesickness.
20 years ago when I moved to New York City. I think it was this longing and this continuing feeling of home and all of the memories of people in my family, the love, the pride that they put in me. I was searching for that. And I found that in recreating the foods that they cooked or the foods or the smells that were in their home.
Years later, Nicole would start to split her time between Brooklyn and Athens to expose her son to the same love, pride, and comfort that led her back to the fried green tomatoes.
I would never thought that I would be spending 4 or 5 months in a home that I own in Athens, Georgia. But we would make a commitment that our son would understand the American South beyond the stories that we would tell him, but he'll actually get to see it. So as soon as school is out in New York City, we come down to Georgia. I'm here now. He is, in art camp, and he's learning how to swim at the same city swimming pool that I learned to swim. So it's different, but he gets to hear the voices. He gets to see my mom and see her cooking in the kitchen. All the things that I go back to when searching for home. I hope that he's getting to see it in a real way and not just through the storytelling that I would be telling him if we were full-time residents in the Northeast.
But part of understanding the American South is holding the complexities and conflicts in its history, especially for Black residents. And the center of so many conflicts was food. I want to talk a little bit more about the history of Athens. So obviously you have a personal history with Athens, but Athens also has an interesting story at the intersection of Southern food and civil rights. It has to do with this fast food restaurant called The Varsity. You made a documentary about this back in 2014. Talk to us about that story. Talk to us about what happened with The Varsity.
Yeah, I am a fourth generation Athenian and heard these stories growing up about my cousin, Shirley Ann Taylor. They're like, oh, she used to march and civil rights stuff here in Athens. So as I got older and I found out that the Varsity, which the Athens location of the Varsity in the past year was sold and torn down, the iconic fast food joint known for hot dogs and hamburgers and fried peach pies, young Athenians, Black Athenians said, you know what? We want to go here if we so choose. And they were trained in the vein of the nonviolence student movement or principles of nonviolence, and they staged protests, sit-ins at the original Varsity location, which was downtown. And I decided, along with my dearest friend who has roots in Athens, Gabrielle Fulton Ponder, who's a writer and director, we did a short film. We wanted to tell the story about the unsung Black Athenians. And I will say it fills me with pride to know when we made that film, it literally changed the way people talked about Black Athens.
And for Nicole, part of honoring that history is thinking beyond just the food. Who makes it? Who gets access to it? What do these homegrown dishes symbolize about the South?
When I think about fried green tomatoes, and I think about all the ways that home cooks or restaurants are making them and all the possibilities, all the seasonings you can put in the buttermilk, in the breading, I think about how the American South is evolving. It is not one thing. There is not one South. And fried green tomatoes, just the preparation alone will tell you that. And if you go even before it gets to your kitchen and think about the hands, it speaks to the American South right now. Who are the hands that are, picking the tomato off the vine? That question and the possibilities of how to make a fried green tomato, if that ain't the American South right now, what is? It's both beautiful, it's tasty, but it's still complicated.
Nicole, I really appreciate this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Brittany.
That was Chicago Tribune restaurant critic Louisa Chu and food writer and cookbook author Nicole Taylor. And I'm going to put on my influencer hat for a second and ask you to please subscribe to this show on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening. Click follow so you know the latest in culture while it's still hot. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Alexis Williams.
This episode was edited by
Nina Patak.
Our supervising producer is
Barton Girdwood.
Our executive producer is
Verilyn Williams.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
Support for NPR and the following message come from IXL Online. Is your child asking questions on their homework you don't feel equipped to answer? IXL Learning uses advanced algorithms to give the right help to each kid, no matter the age or personality. One subscription gets you everything. One site for all the kids in your home, pre-K to 12th grade. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. And NPR listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/NPR.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Vuori, featuring the Core Short. Receive 20% off your first purchase on any U.S. orders over $75 and free returns at Vuori.com/NPR. Exclusions apply. Visit the website for full terms and conditions.
Support for NPR and the following message come from IXL Learning. IXL Learning uses advanced algorithms to give the right help to each kid, no matter the age or personality. Get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when you sign up today at IXL.com/NPR.